Kesley?
Good evening, everyone. I am so thrilled to be here with you guys. I just opened up my Q&A so I can make sure if I see any questions popping up, we can answer those questions. So today's workshop, we'll be using Cricut's Infusible ink pens. These are very much like the Infusible ink paper, so they'll work the same way, but they're pens. So when you heat these up, they will transfer onto different material. It's great for fabric, for tote bags, ceramic mugs, ceramic tile, anything that you can use infusible ink on, you can use the infusible pens on. Now, one key thing, I always have to remind myself this, and I'll be able to show you a bunch of my oopsies. It is just, you're going to do it the same way that you use when you do any type of heat transfer, whether you're using heat transfer vinyl or you're using infusible ink or infusible ink pens. You must remember to mirror. I'm going to say that a whole bunch of times because that was my biggest downfall as I was doing this. I kept forgetting to mirror, and sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't matter. But when you're working with paint by numbers and you're adding numbers to your canvas, you do want to make sure that that is mirrored. So even if your image might be something that's asymmetrical or that doesn't really make a difference, if it's mirrored, when you're adding those numbers into it, and this might be really hard to see, but when you're adding those numbers into it, you do want to make sure that you have mirrored your image so your numbers come out mirrored. So we're going to do this class in two stages. The first stage, I'm going to go through the software, Cricut Design Space. If you have Cricut Access, these images are available to you through Cricut Design Space, Cricut Access. If you don't have Cricut Access, there is a charge for each image that you use through Cricut. It could be 99 cents up to, I think, $1.50 on the ones I used. But you can always upload your own images and add your numbers to images that you upload. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll jump right into Design Space as we get started.
Kesley, I
All
hate to
right.
interrupt you. I think that your clip mic is not on. It's coming through your device instead of your mic.
Is it? Can you not hear me?
We can hear you, but there's a bit of an echo and some of your words are cutting off.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
will. I don't know how to fix that.
That's
Okay,
all
but if
right.
anybody
I
needs
think
me to
it'll be
repeat
fine.
anything, okay, good. All right. So let's talk about in Design Space. Now, when you come into Design Space, you'll come into the home screen. Let's go get over here in the home screen. And what I did was I searched for coloring pages. So the first thing I looked for, I did a search for coloring pages. Now, if you know that you want to do something, Valentine's Day themed, or you want to do, maybe you're starting to get ready for spring and you're thinking Easter baskets or little Easter goodies, and you want to do some paint by numbers, you can, certainly look for whatever you'd like to search for. I just did a search for some simple, black and white designs that I could add to a canvas. So again, you can take any design that you'd like. I'm going to pick this watercoloring can. This gives me lots of different colors to work with, and I'll add this to my canvas. Now, one thing when you, let's see, add to canvas, and then let's go to canvas. Okay. Oh, I've got it there twice. Here we go. All right. Let me just go new. Let's give a new canvas here. Come back and add that to the canvas. Okay. And then we'll view our canvas. So when you bring your element onto your canvas, whatever you're looking for, you'll notice that there's an operation associated with that design. So this operation is set to be a basic cut, which means you can cut this out of vinyl, out of cardstock, whatever you'd like to cut it out of. we are actually going to be using the infusible ink pens. So we want to draw this element out. So the first thing you can do is right size your design. I have a 6x8 canvas. So the largest I want my design to be is 6 inches wide. And so this turns out to be 6 inches wide by 6 inches high. That will leave about an inch on the top and an inch on the bottom, but take it right to the edge. Now you could unlock your proportions here on the sides. You just click on that little lock and we can adjust our proportions. So, they're a little bit longer and a little bit narrower if you'd like to do that. You can also add a name. So since this would be going on a 6 inch by 8 inch canvas for what I'm working on, you could also, if you had an 8x8 canvas or a 5 inch by 5 inch canvas, you could certainly adjust and modify for that. If you want to see how it's going to look on your canvas, go to shapes and pull out the square or rectangle. I don't know why I always start with the square and turn it into a rectangle. But we'll turn off the proportions and make this 6 inches wide by 8 inches tall. So this now represents my canvas. And I could just change that color so I can see what my design, how it's going to fit on my canvas. Let's like that. So if I take my little pot here, maybe I want to go a little bit smaller. So I have some on the edge to work with. I'm not pushing it right to the edge of my design. So I may just want to go just a little bit smaller like that. Now I can, if I'm still want to work with a rectangle canvas, you can always add some phrases down here. Maybe there's a good quote you want to add. You can always choose to add more images to your design. So let's say we want to find a Valentine quote. And you'll find lots of cute little quotes here, even just a happy Valentine's Day, be my Valentine. Maybe that's what you want to add to your canvas. There's just so many cute ones. So you can just add this onto your canvas, be my Valentine. And if you want to, let's do the contour and we'll remove the heart and just have the be mine Valentine, or even just we could say just be mine, whatever you want to have on your canvas. You could also use the text box and just add be mine on there if you wanted to. So let me just show you real quick. If you didn't find an image that you liked, a quote image, and you just wanted to add be mine on there. Be mine. Let's say you wanted to add that on there. We can make it at an angle and just make that a bit bigger. And then you could always come in, and change your font. If you wanted to make it a little bit more fun, you could just add something onto it and make it a little bit different. Like that. Maybe you want Be My Valentine. So we can just add that right onto there and you can pop that right in the bottom of your design. Okay, so that's just some ideas of how you can fill in that space if you wanted to, if you felt like you needed to fill in that space, or if your canvas was, the right size for that, a square size, you'd be fine. I was thinking that would be a good rectangle size. Okay, so if you're working, let's say you're having a Valentine's party or you're doing this yourself, you may not feel like you need to add numbers to it, but if you're working on something for your kids to do, you might want to indicate some colors for them to use on the different elements. So for that, we're going to go back to the text box and we're just going to add, and I use Cricut Sans for this. I think that's a really good generic font. So we'll just use Cricut Sans. Okay, and then now that you have a number, we'll reduce that size down so it will fit on our flowers and our hearts and things like that. And sorry about that, from the font, you want to walk over to the style. Because we're using a pen, We want our style to be writing. So no matter what font you choose, you want that style to be a writing style. So let's say you want your hearts to be number 1, and maybe those will be a cute little red or pink or something like that. You'll just pop that into that number. And then if you want to change out the can, you can change out the can to be a number 2. So you just go to text box, type in the number 2, change the size of that back down to that little mini size. Sometimes you may have to even go smaller. 24 font size works out pretty well. So we're just going to copy and paste this around the planter to kind of get the idea, to indicate that your watering can here, not a planter, your watering can is going to be a number 2. Okay, now I actually have one already done, so I can show you what it looks like all done. So let me just pull that project up, the paint by numbers canvas, so you can see I've added all the numbers and everything, and it fits on my canvas the proper way I want it to fit. So this was the original I started out with, and I adjusted it a bit to get my colors and get the right size that I wanted. So if you look at it, I started with my blank canvas of a 6x8 size, and then I started with this design, this little square design. So I unlocked my proportion and right sized my design so that it would fit onto the canvas. So I have it right size there. Now, each of these layers is a cut layer. So if I were to send this over to my maker right now, it would want to cut each layer out of construction paper or vinyl, whatever I was doing. So I wanted to first change these to the draw layers. So you just select the heart file, whatever layer it is. So these are all attached together. And instead of a basic cut up here in operation, I'll drop down and select pen. Now it turned everything black and white, which is what you want, those black lines. And then once all the black lines were there, I went through and with using the colors, I selected the numbers to coordinate with the colors. So I put 2s on every red, 1 on every peach, oranges got 3, and yellows got 4s. And then I can leave the canvas itself white, or you can color that in with a color. So that's how that works out. And then there's what it's going to look like. Now I don't need to keep my canvas, so I can just hide this layer since we're not going to be cutting that later. But you do want to make sure that all of your letters and your outlines are attached. So when you have a lot of different layers, that you want to make sure that when you go to cut it or draw those layers, they are attached together. So all of my numbers here are their own individual layer. And so I grouped those all together and attached those layers. But then I also wanted to grab my hearts and attach the hearts with the numbers. So that attaches those all together. And then I simply go to the make icon and I'm ready to send it over to my design. Now, before I send it over, again, don't forget you want to do the mirror function. So you want to make sure you mirror that image before sending it over. And then we're ready to send this particular design right to our maker. Before I do that, though, I want to just kind of go through one other design, because maybe sometimes your designs don't have those easy lines to work with. You may have picked a different design that maybe had more color to it, or was just a little bit, had layers of color with no clear black and white. So let me show you this, and then we can move on from that and have it made. So this design here, this is the original design that I found in the design Cricut Access. And what I wanted to do was convert this colorful design into a black and white design that I could then transfer to a canvas and paint that in. So each of these layers, design is all attached together, but when you open that group of layers, you can see that each layer is its own color and has its own design element to it. So it's a full color. So what you need to do is select the main layer, and I'm hoping this will work for us. There's two ways you can do this. One is to just go back up to the pen layer and make it into a drawing. So it takes all of those layers and it converts those into an outline. We're just going to draw the outside of your heart a different color and use different colored pens to indicate what color is what color, because this is kind of small. So you may just want to take one layer and make it into the outline and keep the other layer that color. So I hope that makes sense. So if I had this outside heart and I wanted to make that into its own drawing line, but change that so that I could use the red infusible ink pen on it. Oh, let's see, I think I have to go here and scroll down to get my infusible ink. So here's all my infusible inks. So I could then make that into a dark red color. I could come up and grab my next layer and make that into a pen layer and change that color. Again, go down to your infusible inks and find the color you want there. You can change each layer into its own color and then have each color draw out. Or as I did at the beginning, just take the whole design and make the entire design a draw layer with a pen. And even if you want to, you can come in and indicate which infusible ink pen you'll be using. Would it be a black pen, a red pen? You can choose what you want to choose. Okay, so that's how, if your design isn't so clearly a coloring page, but you want to change it up so you can turn it into a coloring page, using the operation of pen will do that for you. So I'm going to go back to this, our first guy over here. Uh-oh, where'd it go? Oh, it was up here. We'll take this layer here and we're going to just go back to the customize, replace that layer. And we'll take this one that we've already made, and this is ready to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and send this over to my maker, and then we'll talk about all the different supplies that you might need to do this. So we want to make sure that you mirror your image. Again, you want those numbers. We're going to flip this when we press it on. So we want those numbers to be mirrored. And you go ahead and hit continue. And then you want to find your machine that's set up. Always takes a second to grab onto that. There we go. Gotta make sure it's hooked up. Okay, so I'm using my USB instead of my Bluetooth. And this is an important aspect here. You're going to draw onto a laser copy paper, not a canvas. You're drawing actually on copy paper. Now, you do need to make sure you're using laser copy paper. I'll show you which kind I have, because the laser copy paper can take the high heat that you need to transfer this design over. So you want to make sure you're using laser copy paper and that you got your pen and your clamp A. Okay, so let's stop share here. All right, so let's go over to, can you switch over to my overhead, Rich, and I'll show them what we're working on over there. So over here, I have a big, huge pack of laser copy paper that I got when I first started using the infusible ink pens. And it's a really big sheet. So you don't have to get a pack this big, but you just want to make sure that it does say laser paper on it, so that you know it can take that high heat. The high heat I'm talking about is from your Easy Press. Got my Easy Press here. I'm gonna have to charge him up. From your Easy Press, you need to use a heat of 380 to 400 degrees. So for this design that we're putting on a canvas, I just need 380 degrees and it's just for 40 seconds. So I'm going to drop my time down to 40 seconds here. Now you can use infusible ink pens on all the different machines. So you have your Maker and your Explore machine will use this type of pen. So, you know, they have different pens, but depending on which machine you're using. So this one is a 1-point black, this pen. So you can see that tip is really quite large. And then this one is a 0.4 black pen. So it's much smaller tip. So I'm going to use the 0.4. On your Cricut Joy infusible ink pens, they have a shorter cap. So if you're using a Cricut Joy, you want to make sure that you have the Cricut Joy pen and it's got that smaller cap on it. Also, you want to make sure that you are using infusible ink pens. So it'll say Cricut Infusible Ink as opposed to just Cricut or Cricut Joy pens. These are the regular ink pens that you would use to draw things with. When you insert the pen into your machine, if you're using a Maker or an Explorer, you'll put it in clamp A. So you just open up your clamp, put your pen in, and the arrow, you know, will show you where to put your pen in. Make sure it clicks in. Did you guys hear that? Make sure it clicks in, and then you close that clamp. Now, we're not cutting this, we're only using the pen. I did think, like, if I were doing something with a circle design, it might be easier to cut out my design so that I could easily see where it goes on my blank. But for these, I'm just doing rectangles and squares. Now, for your mat, you'll want to use a light grip mat. And this light grip mat happens to be a fairly older mat. So I've had this one for quite a while, and it's been around the block. So the reason I like to use an older mat is it won't hold my paper too tight. So when you're using something, you know, light like this paper is, you want to not have a mat that doesn't have too much stick on it. So we'll just load our mat in like regular, make sure it goes under the little wheels there and load it in, and then it will be ready to go. So you'll see how it just draws out the design for us. Now, I have my oopsies around here, so I could show you what happens when you forget to mirror, because that does certainly happen sometimes. So you can see this one here. I went ahead and drew it out, and it's all right side up. But when I transferred it over, because my numbers weren't mirrored, when I transferred it, you put it down on top of your canvas, my numbers came backwards. Now, if I were doing for Galentine's or something like that, I would go ahead and use this. But if I were doing it for one of my kids, I think this would be super confusing to a young kid. So you might want to just redo this one and save this one for yourself or another adult. And you can see that the color doesn't, because the canvas is not 100% polyester, the color does not completely transfer over. So the way that infusible ink works is it works with materials that are 100% polyester best. If the fibers are 100% polyester, then it will transfer over at this dark bright color. The canvases that I'm using are a cotton canvas with an acrylic brush on top of it. So the canvases that I have from Michael's are not 100% polyester. So 100% of the color doesn't transfer. But for this application, for what we're doing, I'm okay with that, because you don't always have to have these dark black lines to transfer. Like if you have a nice subtle line like this one, then you don't have to worry about, working really hard to cover those lines. So once you have your design is printed out, we're ready to transfer it onto our material. So I'm just going to cover my surface here with a little cloth first. So we're going to put our cloth down here, and then I have my press heated up to 300 degrees for 40 seconds. You'll want to have your, I gotta get my canvas over here. All right, so the canvases I'm using are from Artist Loft, and it's a 6-inch by 8-inch canvas. I want to show you the packaging. So if you're looking for it, you'll see this is a canvas panel. It's a 6-inch by 8-inch. So I'll show you how to work with smaller or with bigger canvases that have the wood frame to it. But for our first one, we're going to do just the flat canvas. So you just want to go ahead and take that out of its packaging. Now, I usually like to run over the canvas, even though it's coming straight out of the packaging. Get that out of there. I like to run over my canvas with a lint roller. And you want to use a lint roller because if there's any lint on your canvas or whatever you're transferring to, the ink colors won't transfer onto that blank. So you want to make sure you give it a little scrub there, make sure there's no lint in between your canvas and your blank. And then you'll take your press pad, put that down on your work surface. We'll take our mirror, and I usually will put this up against the light to make sure that I have it centered and lined up properly on the design. And this goes right to the edge here, which I'm okay with that. But I've got it centered and lined up on my design. Once you have it centered and lined up on your design, you can turn it over, and you'll want to use some heat-resistant tape. So this is Cricut's heat-resistant tape to tape your design down. You don't want your design to kind of wiggle or walk around on you once you've got it placed where you want it. You want to make sure it's going to stay right where you've placed it. And then you can turn it over, so you'll see the back side of your design is on my canvas. I have my canvas facing up. This will seep through, the infusible ink will seep through the paper. So I just use like 3 or 4 pieces of laser paper on top of my design so that the color doesn't come through onto my press. Once you've got that placed properly, you've got your press heated up, we're ready to put it down. So you just set it down and you hit go. You don't need to give, too much pressure on it. You can actually just walk away. You don't want to move it around, because if you move it around, and I have a sample where I move things around a bit too soon, and I got the shadowing. So you see how there's like a little lighter version of the design? It's because my paper shifted when I moved it. So I got the shadowing. So you don't want to move your design, move your heat press until you're ready to. That's also why I like to use the tape, because the tape will also hold your design onto your canvas. Now, if you have like a marble countertop or something in the kitchen, you can do that press without the pad underneath, because it'll keep it even flatter. Your canvas can curve just a little bit from the heat, but it's not enough to make like that big a difference. For me, it wasn't. So you want to just let it cool. It's very hot to the touch, obviously, because it's at such a high temperature. Pardon me. And then you just take this off. So it's a little bit light in the middle, but that's because I have this pad instead of working on a hard surface. But it's perfect. You're ready to go. somebody can start painting right there. Let me show you guys. Still so hot. So see, got that on there. And then you can just take your watercolors, I mean, your paint pens or your acrylic paint and start to paint your design right onto there. All right, so that's our first design, working with the flat canvases. Does anybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A. I'd be happy to answer those questions as we're going along. I don't want anybody to be alarmed. I did this design with a thicker marker, so you could see how the thicker marker lines show up. And also you can see, so this was with the marker, that's the thicker one. This is right out of the machine, right after it's done. And then when it presses, the color did change a little bit. You can see the color transferred right over. So when you're working with a darker, thicker pen, you do have a different layer, different level of transfer there. So just kind of keep that in mind. And if you use different color infusible ink pens, you will get different colors on here. So like if I had done that red and changed the colors out, I would have had different colors on that design. So that's just one I wanted to show you guys. And you can see this one I did right on my counter. So it was flat on my surface. I didn't have something squishy underneath it. And you can see that I don't have any loss of color in the middle there. So just, that's just kind of like something I experienced as I went through. Now, this is a fun, I'm trying to say, I guess, let's keep working with our canvases as we're moving through. So this was the next project I wanted to share with you, was using a canvas. So if you have to, if you want to do a canvas that has a frame on it, so it's it has like a little bit more dimensionality than the flat canvases. This one thing so we'll go through this, and you can see that on this canvas I forgot to mirror. So I started painting and I was like, oh no, I forgot to mirror. So I thought we could do this one again together, and we can walk through that a little bit of how to work on that canvas. So I'll share my screen again. And the canvas on this one is a 4x4 canvas, I think the size was. We'll double check on it. It may actually be a 3.5 by 3.5. It's a little guy. It's a cute one. So the overall size of this canvas is 4 inches by 4 inches. So in my design space here, I actually have a project that I have queued up for this one. It's a paint by numbers for a coaster, but it's like a frame, so it doesn't matter what size you're doing. And so one thing with this one that I thought was interesting, and I also have it on the coaster one I did, is the lines are thicker. So when you change a design to a line art, so when you change an operation from a basic cut to a line art, it basically outlines what would normally be cut out. It outlines the cut lines. So for both of these designs, the cut lines, it would have cut around these designs. So all you have is the outline and then the kiss. So I thought that was a really cute one. And then this one was cute because you could add your own little sentiments on there if you wanted to. So let me show you how, again, I made these designs work for me. We're going to slide those off to the side and we'll just work with this one. So again, my shape is a 4x4 canvas. So I'll grab my canvas. I know what size I'm working with. I always like to have that visual. I don't know if you guys do that too. But I'll pull that as a 4x4, and then I can take both the square and the image and align those center. So my little XOXO will be right on the center of my design there. If I feel like I need to, I can kind of scooch that in a little bit more, make it a little bit smaller so it doesn't go right to the edge. So that's how that's going to look. And then with this, it's still set up as a basic cut. And if I want to, again, I just take it and I can draw those lines. And so now they become just the sketch lines that will draw out, and you'll have that. That's how it'll look on your coaster. That dark color kind of kills me. Huh? So let's just change that so you can see it. If it goes on a white coaster, what it would look like. So that's what it would look like. Now, you could paint your coaster first and then add your design onto it, but we're just going to take the white coaster and add this design onto the white coaster. So let's go ahead and make that up. Now, again, the coasters, I'm sorry, we're going to do this one on the canvas. I'm sorry, guys. This one we're going to do on the canvas. So again, we want to mirror. It'll be the same process that we did on the one before. So go ahead and hit continue. Queue up your machine, and then we'll give this a, let's see, must be mirrored. I want to make sure I have it mirrored. Okay, and then I'll stop share, and we can go right back over here. So again, I'll do the same process as I did before. We'll use our laser paper and that fine pen. Put that right down onto there. Now on this one, since the canvas is a little bit raised, I'm going to increase my increase my temperature to 400. So again, I'll just pick laser copy paper and we're ready to go. See if I've done it. Okay, so he's ready to go. Now let's get our canvas queued up and ready to go. Let's see. There we are. Okay, now for this one, and I have to find my little piece. Okay, so when you're working with a canvas, while that's drawing out, I'm going to share some information here. When you're working with this canvas, if you press right on the canvas front, there's some give here. So the canvas itself kind of droops down when you put that pressure of your easy press onto your canvas. So what I like to do is create just a piece of cardboard, or if you have some wood that you can place in the middle of your frame, you can just put that right in there, and this will help to flatten out your frame. One thing I usually use just brown cardboard, but I have an extra package hanging around. I'm just hoping this doesn't transfer over. I don't think it would, but just in case, let me cut some paper to a 4x4 size, and we can make sure that doesn't happen. So the inside of my canvas is 3 inches by 3 inches. I'm just going to cut a little piece just to make sure. That like this. And then the application process will be the same. So you'll queue up your sandwich the same way as we did with the flat canvas. And I'm just going to increase my temperature to 400. Okay, so I've got that in there just in case that were to transfer over. I don't think it would, but just in case. Put that in there. And then I've got that. And it's a little bit thicker than the frame by a hair, but it squishes down. So that's okay. Now, usually my mat is really used. So there's very little stick left to it, but usually you want to turn your mat over and peel your design right off of your mat. And then we'll position our design, the design on the mat the same way as before. Want to make sure everything's going to line up. So you can just turn it over. Make sure everything's going to line up. And then use your heat tape on the side again to make sure nothing wiggles on you. So we've got that right lined up on the on the corners there. So I'll put my heat resistant tape on it. So it's not going to move on me. And then I'll put my block in the back. And again, you just want to use your heat resistant pad. Put your design in the middle of your pad. It's a little bit thick, listen. And then you just place this over your design and press it down. So we're going to place that right in the middle. And I'm going to give it a little bit of a help here because I have that extra padding in there. So I want to make sure I put a little bit of muscle on my press. So I have it at 400 degrees for 40 seconds. So most of the materials that you're using for these canvases, you can do it between 380 degrees to 400 degrees. I don't recommend with infusible ink using a home iron because it doesn't get hot enough, and it doesn't, a home iron doesn't heat up the same way as a press does. So your press heats up around the whole, same heat around your whole design. All right, so let's just slide this off. And oh, look, he's so cute. There we go. Look at how great that turned out. So having that in there definitely helped with the transfer there. And as you can see, it transferred with going the right direction because I mirrored my design. Now, for this canvas, I wanted to share with you one other little fun tool I found that was really a lot of fun. And if you have young kids and you don't want to have a lot of paint everywhere, these little paint pens are very easy to use. You just like open them up out of the packaging, and you have to kind of wake up the pen. So you give it like lots of good shakes, and then just press on the tip of the pen until you see the ink come down. And then you'll start to see the ink flow down. You don't want to press and pick up too many times because that builds up air in there and then it can be a bubble. But look at how nice and thick and like juicy that is. So I thought for a design like this one, just using a paint pen would be so cute and easy. So you can just grab your paint pen and follow the lines. And you just got that right on there. Now, if you wanted to, you could come back with a black Sharpie and outline your lines if you wanted to, but the acrylic paint covers up your light gray lines here, so you don't actually see those lines. Now, also, if you are working with small kids and you think, well, they can't even, color in the lines, you could consider using the fuzzy heat transfer vinyl for this project and make it like that 1970s poster boards where you colored in the lines. I can't remember what those were called, but there's a fuzzy heat transfer vinyl. It's not a puff, but it's like a fuzzy. And you could just use that to color, and then they would color on the inside of the design instead of trying to have 5-year-old color on the outside. Just makes it so much easier. Then you don't have to worry if they stay in the lines or not. It just is super cute. And then you can add little decorations in those spots and come back in and do your kiss and your love. Are you guys loving this? This is also would be a fun thing to do at a wedding, while people are waiting for the bride and groom, to give everybody like a little small design that they could do. And then the bride and groom would have all these different frames that they could combine into a large collage. A fun idea. All right, so there we go. So there's another, if you're wanting to put it onto a frame instead of doing a flat one, just make sure you have something in the middle to suspend that space so that space doesn't droop down and it doesn't fill in the color. Now you can always use your acrylic paints if you want. Like I have a couple different acrylic paint colors here that I've used. And on this last sample I have, of the coaster. Now you have two different options of coasters at Michael's. One is it doesn't have like a finish on it. It's not like this it is make market, but it's a ceramic coaster, but it's not designed for sublimation. If your coaster is designed for sublimation, then it can take the infusible, the infusible ink pens. So the coaster, it's just like a ceramic coaster, didn't do as well as the regular sublimation coaster, and I kind of messed that up a little bit. So I thought I could show you all how to do this one. The Love Bites, really cute one for if you have like a little guy for Valentine's Day. That was a cute design. So I'm going to share my screen again, and I'll show you. I have that one already ready to go. It was just a simple design that I turned into use the draw lines on that. It was really easy. Oh, I don't have the original. Let me see that. I should show you the original. See the info. There it is. So this is the original design here. So again, if I wanted to add some, oh, that's not the original. It's very similar to it. If I wanted to add the different colors onto it, if somebody were doing this, one thing that would be easy to do is to add it when it's a larger size. So let's just take this one.
Are you sharing your
can,
screen, Isley?
Oh, is it not sharing?
No, ma'am.
Oh, not sharing. Oh. Thank you for catching that. Okay, so here we have our dinosaur. And if I wanted to put numbers with the dinosaur, our first step, of course, is to turn this into a drawing. So we'll do the drawing, and then we're going to add our Cricut Sans style of writing, and we'll just do a number. We have 1 through 3 colors that we're using. So we'll just do a 1. It can be a little bigger, that green guy. Okay, so your 1 can go right in here. And then on all your hearts, you'll do a number 2. So I didn't reduce the size of this. I actually enlarged the size of this design so I could have a little easier time seeing where the numbers needed to go. So I'm just going to change those numbers out, and this needs to be a little bit smaller so it'll fit in some of these hearts. And then that way, when I adjust the size of the overall design, then my numbers will be in the right spot. So I'm just copying and pasting my numbers right into the dinosaur. And the Make Market Sublimation blanks are actually 3 3/4 of an inch. So just keep that in mind, that instead of doing this at 4 inches, we're going to do it at 3 3/4 of an inch. Okay. And one other, kind of thing, just in general, when you're working with the pens, you always kind of have to think that the pens follow the cut lines. So like if you wanted to say fill in the word bites with a black pen, you really can't do that because it just does the outline of the cut lines. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your design. It does the outline of your cut lines. That makes sense. Okay, so there's all my numbers, 1, 2, 3. My dino's all ready to go. I want to have everything selected, and we're going to attach all of that together, like paper clip it, staple it all together, and then we'll change our largest size to 3.5 inches. And in fact, it could go a little bit smaller because it's 3 3/4. I'm going to go down to 3.25 inches on that guy. And you see all my numbers are in the right spot, and I didn't have to try and figure out how to get those into my design. If you're making a lot of these, like let's say you're going to do 3 or 4 placemats, you can increase the quantity of your project right here, and it just adds multiples of your project on your paper. So I'm just going to do one for interest here, and then don't forget we want to mirror that guy. All right, and we're ready to continue. So we'll just wait for that to connect, and then we'll get that one going. Now, if you do decide to do the coasters, normally if you're using like a normally if you're putting an infusible ink design on your coaster, you don't need to put any type of sealant on your coaster. Like if you're just using infusible ink silks into your coaster. It becomes one with the fibers on your coaster. And so you can wash that coaster, the mug, you can put it right through the wash and everything. And it will always, it'll stay on there like it's amazing how long they stay on there. You'll lose your mug or your coaster, you'll break it before your design goes away. So just kind of keep that in mind with what you're working on. And you can mix and match. So like there's another good pen. I thought I had it out to share with you all. I think it's called Costco pens. Let's see if we have it. Oh, okay. I'm gonna pull these out. These are a little bit more expensive than these Craft Smart paint pens, the Posca pens, but they're really fun. They work the same way, but I have some like browns and greens in here, so we can use those for our little dinosaur. You wanted to. If you're doing this, I forgot to mention this. One other fun thing are these little paint caddies. So these are in the like kids art section for the little paint pots, and they come in sets of 6. I think you get like 3 or 4 in a package. You can always trim them down if you want. You can either with a pen write on the top or use little stickers and put a color on the top, so that when you have somebody and you're giving them the canvas with this, the number 1 would go with what's number 1, and you have number 2 would go with number 2, number 3 would go with number 3, and so on and so forth. So if you're working with Galentine's or your kids, this is a great way to kind of help everybody do their painting in those little paint pots. Plus, then you don't have a whole bunch of paint all over the place, you know. It kind of keeps things contained. Okay, so for this guy, when you're doing your ceramics, it's a little bit different when you're doing a ceramic tile. And this works with if you're doing infusible ink or infusible paper. You want to first clean your tile with alcohol and a lint-free cloth. So when you're doing infusible ink, you want to make sure that you have no lint between your blank and, oops, no, we want to stand between your blank and your design. Okay, so we want to make sure that there's no little lint or anything on my infusible ink. I mean, on my coaster. Now, the sandwich is a little bit different. Instead of like the canvases where we put the design on top, when you're working with a tile, your design goes on the bottom of the tile. So let's get it lined up and have our tape ready to go. So cute, this little guy. So we line that up and you have your tape ready to go. So you may want to put like one piece on this side here. So you've got it. That lined up. So put that one on there so it doesn't move on me. And then I'll turn it over this way. So because the design is facing your pad, you want to make sure that you really have enough paper in between so the design doesn't transfer from here onto your pad. And then we'll just put that in the center of our pad like that. And then I just put another piece on the back of it. It's nothing's going to transfer, but I don't want the I just always use a barrier between my things. Now for this, we're gonna take this, and instead of doing 400, we're gonna do it 400 degrees, but instead of 42 seconds, we have to increase our time to 240 seconds. So it's like 4 minutes it takes to do this. So I'm going to go ahead while this is, I'm just adjusting the time to 420 seconds. And then it's really, really hot. So as excited as you are, don't touch it right away. So we'll go ahead and do 420 seconds. And I'll try if there were any questions as we were going through. I will answer those questions now. Or if you had any questions that I didn't get to, please do feel free to put those in the Q&A. Don't forget your tape. You do need to use that heat resistant tape on when you're working with the heat. If you use like Scotch tape or masking tape, it's going to melt and that will ruin your project. So you definitely want to make sure that you're using, the right kind of tape on it. If you use, when you paint on your tile, you do want to put a sealant on it. So like there's a good Rust-Oleum sealant that you could use, or your good old faithful Mod Podge will work. So you can do that, and then always put your little cork piece on the back of it. So I love that. The Cricut Infusible ink pens come in the different sizes for your Cricut Maker. Your Cricut Maker and your Explorer are the same size pen, but your Cricut Joy is a different size pen. So always, kind of keep that in mind. You can use Sharpies, absolutely. If you want to do follow along with your outline, you could use a Sharpie. This is a fun Sharpie paint pen. I think it's a zebra brush pen. I don't know if this is an acrylic ink pen, if that would work. If you wanted to, so here's a great suggestion. If you wanted to, you could cut out using your Cricut the paper, the laser copy paper, in the size of your canvas or in the size of your coaster, and let your kids do a drawing. Just keep in mind that the drawing will be mirrored, so you don't want to have your kids put words on it. Otherwise, it won't transfer the right way. Once you've mastered this on these canvases, the canvases are pretty inexpensive. Like I think you can get 4 canvases of the 6x8 size for like $4 or so. The little canvases are so fun to work with. I have the 4x4 and the 5x5 size. I think this is a really fun size too. But once you get really comfortable doing this with canvases, think of all the other possibilities that you can use the infusible ink pens. And just to give you an idea, this is the pack of all the different colors of the infusible ink pens. This has 30 different colors in it. So you could actually use these on this technique. You could do wine bags or a tote and put a design onto a tote, and then use fabric paint and paint it. You could use, again, the wine bags with fabric paint. You could take the design, the drawing of a design, and place it on a mug, like one of the Cricut ceramic mugs, and place it on the mug. I did too many. I did this last time. I did way too many on here. I had, you know what it was? It was upside down. I think I did 420 seconds instead of 240 seconds. So I'm going to give this just a few more seconds, and then we'll pop it off. I'm sorry about that. I did that before. I had it too high. It's 400 degrees for 240 seconds. Should be enough to get it going. So that is, I was thinking about all the other things, like the fabric paint part of it. It was really fun. There's a trend for high schoolers in their senior year will go thrifting and get some old jeans, and then they'll do a design on the jeans. So how fun to kind of help them out. Somebody who's like, oh, I'm not super creative. You could draw out the design and then heat transfer the design onto a pair of jeans and then use fabric paint and fill it in. I'm always impatient to wait for this to go. And we are right at 8 o'clock. So let me just flip this over and we'll show you guys how cute that turned out. Rich, thank you so much for swapping around all of our cameras tonight and keeping us in line. But look at how cute that turned out. And you can see how much of the color really transferred onto your design. Again, this happens, this kind of light area happened. I don't think I had it in the center of my press when I did it. So, and also adding a little pressure certainly will help with that. And then I can just take my Posco pens and paint this up, or let my kid paint it up, however you want to do it. You can really have fun. Well, and thank you all for joining me this evening. I appreciate it. Don't forget, all these classes are recorded. Michaels would love to see what you make, so be sure to tag Make with Michaels on your social media if you make any of these projects. Thanks, Rich, so much. Have a good night, everybody.